What's going on, y'all? Zach Henderson here, and today we are going to be going over the 4 fundamental kettlebell exercises that you're really going to want to learn the details of in order to get the most out of your workouts, whether your goals are for strength, fat loss, or anything in between. And so we've got Claire, Megan, and Tracy that are going to help me demonstrate how exactly you're going to be performing those exercises, again, in order to get the most out of them. So with that being said, the 4 main moves that we're going to hit today, number 1 is going to be the deadlift. Then from the deadlift, we're going to progress up to the 2-handed kettlebell swing, the squat, and then the 1-arm military press. So without further ado, let's get on into it. All right, guys, so the very first exercise that we're going to go over is the kettlebell sumo deadlift. This is very important because it's going to teach the hip hinge move, which is going to be foundational, obviously, for the swing, which is probably where you're going to be spending the most amount of time and doing the most number of repetitions. So with the deadlift, you want to use a weight that is a little on the heavy side, even when you're kind of first starting off, just so you kind of get that feedback of really having to tighten up. Of course, it doesn't have to be astronomically heavy, but something with a little bit of heft, something that's not just going to fly up off the ground, is going to be what you're going to want to use. So for all of these exercises, we're going to be using a 3-step process in order to learn and to execute the movement. And that is going to be ready, aim, and fire. Okay? So the ready part is just the setup. So for the deadlift, Tracy is going to grasp the handle, and just a couple of things that we're going to make mention here. Number 1, as you can see, the bell is directly underneath her center of gravity, in between the arches of the feet. Her hips are back is straight, eyes are forward into a neutral position. So now that Tracy is ready to perform the deadlift, she is going to quote unquote aim. And that just means that we're going to activate all the muscles included in doing the particular exercise. So in the case of the deadlift, we're really going to root through the feet. Think about slightly corkscrewing your toes, your feet into the ground. That's going to light up the hips, keep tension in the glutes. Very important, keep the lats pulled back in order to what we call pack the shoulders. Now she is ready to fire or execute the moves. Tracy, go for it. Good, and we'll try 4 more reps. Very good. So the execution part of the deadlift, once you've got your setup and your muscle activation in place, it's really just as simple as going through the movement of actually standing up with the weight. Okay, so we pre-tense the glutes, now we're just standing on up with them. The deadlift is quite simply that simple. Not necessarily easy, but those are the steps that you want to think about. Bell in between the feet, hips back, so to the point where the hips are between the line of the knee and the line of the shoulder. So with the deadlift, you're essentially working every major muscle group in your body. Hamstrings, glutes, core, lats, it's all there. And that is the foundation, and that is going to be a great primer for the swing, which we are going to get into next. All right, y'all, so moving on to the kettlebell swing. Now this is by far the most popular kettlebell exercise, simply because the way the kettlebell is set up, it's very, very ergonomic for this particular exercise, as opposed to if you were going to try to do the swing with a dumbbell or something else. So with the foundation that was built with the kettlebell deadlift, the swing is simply an evolution of that exercise. And it's actually going to be different in the sense that this is a power and ballistic exercise that's going to be performed quickly, whereas the deadlift is performed heavy and slow. The swing is lighter and faster. All right, so we're going to go through the same 3 steps, ready, aim, fire, for the kettlebell swing. The setup is going to be similar to the deadlift, but fundamentally different in that you're going to be standing behind the weight as opposed to straight up over top of it. So this is your setup. You're gonna grasp the bell and cock it back. And apart from that, your actual anatomical setup is very, very similar in the sense that you've got shoulders, then a couple inches down are the hips, and a couple inches further down are the line of the knees. The eyes are straight, the back is nice and flat. So that is ready. Now to aim, again, it's very, very similar to the deadlift. Claire is going to pack her lats down, getting her shoulders away from her ears, getting tension through the hamstrings by sliding the hips up and back, and then she's going to be ready to actually perform the swing. Very good. And then of course she ends exactly how she started. So for the execution of the swing, from that setup position, it's a strong hike pass with the bell up behind you, and then the execution of the hips, again, is fundamentally similar to the deadlift, only it's done very, very quickly. The only other points that really need to be made with the swing are quite simply that you want to keep the arms straight but loose. You don't actually want to engage the shoulders to the point where you're front raising the bell. And then of course, you also want to make sure that you get full hip extension at the top so that the knees, hips are locked, back is up straight, and you want to think crown of the head up to the sky. After you do that, it's as simple as guiding the bell back down in between the legs with that pendulum motion, loading up into the ready or aim idea, and then fire. So it's momentary relaxation, loading, and then firing. Okay guys, next exercise is the goblet squat. Now, people tend to have a lot of issues with the squat simply because A, they haven't really practiced it to depth that much, and of course B, with the vast majority of people sitting for the majority of the day, we tend to have tight muscles and structures around the hip and leg area that can make this range of motion a little bit tricky. But the good news is that the goblet squat is one of the best ways to teach and to train the squat motion with just a little bit of weight. So again, we're gonna follow the same three-step process of ready, aim, and fire in order to do the goblet squat. So Megan is going to start by two-hand cleaning the weights up to chest level. So this is your ready setup. Hands are tight around the horns of the bell. Lats are pulled down and engaged so that her shoulder blades are retracted. Abs are super tight to support posture. Glutes and quads are locked out to support neutral pelvis. This is the ready sequence. Now, aim is going to actually be the negative or the eccentric part of the move. So Megan, we're gonna come on down, and from here you can see feet stay flat, back stays nice and neutral. Her elbows are inside the knees and pushing slightly against the knees. The weight is held just a couple inches away from her chest, and her eyes are forward. Now the fire is going to be squatting up with a little grunt and exhalation. Very good. And ending right back where we started. So of course, to set the weight down, more or less just how you picked it up, using two hands, slowly and under control, drop the weight right back down where you found it. So again, the goblet squat is as simple and as complicated as that. It's just a matter of getting tight with the weight up here, held just off the chest, maintaining tightness when you come down, maintaining a good amount of engagement through all of that musculature at the bottom, and then using all of that same musculature to stand yourself on up. So again, we're talking quads, glutes, core, to a large degree the arms and shoulders, and that is really all there is to be said about the squat. Really, as you go up in weight, you're gonna find that different parts of the body tend to need more actual mental attention and focus in order to stay tight, because it is natural to try to get away with being as loose as possible, but the deadlift, to a certain degree the swing, and especially the squat, require full body tension when you actually execute the move. All right, y'all, so the last exercise that we are gonna go over today is the one-arm kettlebell military press. Now this can be a little bit tricky because you're actually going to be holding the bell so that the majority of the weight is actually going to be resting up against the outside of the forearm, which can be uncomfortable the first couple times that you practice this exercise, and you're definitely gonna want to maneuver the weight around so that it rests comfortably on the muscle of the forearm and not the bone. So again, we're gonna go over the 3 steps in order to actually perform the one-arm military press. So for the setup, or ready, Tracy is going to 2-hand cheat clean the weight up to the rack position. We're not actually going over the ballistic clean today. That's a whole nother can of worms. But using 2 hands is totally fine. Getting it into as comfortable a position as you can manage. Now, a couple things that, again, we want to take note of in the setup. Number 1, starting from the feet, we're gonna be in just a neutral or slightly more narrow stance with the feet. In general, you don't wanna be too wide because you wanna think about your body as a column, because you're gonna be supporting this weight way up overhead, way far away from the floor. So you're gonna wanna be very strong through your foundation. All the other points from some of the other exercises apply. We want the quads, glutes, and core on and engaged. From the shoulder and hand position, the wrist will remain straight and all of the fingers of the hand will be grasping the kettlebell more or less to a tight degree. So everything from the pinky to the forefinger to the thumb is grasping tight. That kind of moves on over into the aim or section right before you actually execute the press, and that is generating total body tension. So we talked about the alignment, we talked about getting tight. From here, Tracy is gonna make sure that her shoulders are pulled down, activating through the lat, and that is actually gonna be the foundation from which her arm presses. Now, to execute the rep, she's gonna get tight through both hands, both fists, take a deep breath, and press. Same thing with that power exhalation. Try a couple more. Good. And you notice how the hand corkscrews out as she presses until the wrist faces completely out at the top. Very good. And relax. And you can 2-hand right on back down. So again, looks pretty simple, and it really is. The details really matter when you're talking about how the bell is actually pulling your arm in one direction or the other. Because again, you gotta think, the center of mass is outside of the actual arm that's doing the pressing. So this is gonna take a little bit of practice. Always start from the feet up when you're talking about getting tight, and obviously a tight grip, all else being equal, is gonna make this the most safe and effective exercise that you can do for your shoulders and upper body. And that is the one-arm kettlebell military press. All right, guys, thank you very much for watching. I hope you got a lot out of this video. This is definitely gonna be something that you're gonna wanna reference over and over again, because the nature of kettlebell exercise is kettlebell practice. Practicing the techniques and the details of all these different moves. And it's really, the secret sauce is not in the actual bell itself, it's in how you use it. So again, no matter what your goals are, these basic techniques that we went over are going to be what's gonna help support you in developing a healthy and strong body. With that, I'm Zach Henderson, This is Tracy, Megan, and Claire. Thank you guys very much for helping me out. And if you have any questions, always feel free to holler. We'll see you in the gym.